everyone. Hope you're all doing well. I'm Ashrafi Sneha, your host for this session. I would like to give you all a warm welcome to our event named Women in STEM, Heroes Among Us, an online international symposium celebrating women in STEM as important role models for young STEM students, organized by STEM Community IUB. The purpose of this event is to uphold the important female role models in STEM, to encourage female participation in this field, especially in third world countries, including Bangladesh. The symposium will be a 3-day long event starting today and will consist of talks by national and international scientists, researchers, educators, and entrepreneurs. An idea competition, panel discussion, and skill-based online workshops. Before I introduce our wonderful guest for this session, I would like to thank our sponsors, Invent Technologies and Raj Laptop Gallery, our community partners IEEE Student Branch and their affinity group Women in Engineering, Community of Biotechnology, Exum IT, and the Learning Hub for supporting this event. We also thank Independent University Bangladesh, where STEMC IUB is based as an independent non-profit initiative. Today, among us, we have the Honorable Dr. Zeba Islam Seraj, who is going to be one of our highly anticipated speakers for today's event. I would like to earnestly thank ma'am for joining us today despite her hectic schedule. Dr. Zeba Islam Seraj is a renowned Bangladeshi scientist currently working as a professor at the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology in the University of Dhaka. Dr. Zeba obtained her Ph.D. from the University of Glasgow and post-doctoral from the University of Liverpool. Her work has significantly contributed to Bangladesh agriculture and includes developing salt-tolerant rice varieties suitable for growth in the coastal areas of Bangladesh. She has received the International World Bank Award as well as the Ananya Top 10 Awards for her immense contributions in agriculture. She is a member of the Core Committee on Biosafety of Government of Bangladesh as well as various research societies. She is also the director for Bioinformatics Center of Bioinformatics or CPLAST. Dr. Seraj collaborates with various organizations and national and international universities, including Universities of Texas at Austin and Arizona. We are very excited to hear from ma'am herself, but before handing over the floor to ma'am, I would like to shortly request our audience to drop their questions and remarks in the comment section. Dr. Seraj will try to answer them after her talk. So without any further ado, ma'am, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Ashrafi. So I'll share my slides. I hope everybody can see it. So hello, all science enthusiasts. I should say young science enthusiasts. Welcome to this session, and I'm really excited to be able to, present my thoughts and ideas to you, and perhaps, hopefully, to inspire you. So, women in STEM. Being a woman myself, I know that all young women, and of course I don't say boys as well, men and women, but women particularly, because the topic is women in STEM today. We have the power, or you have the power, to solve the problems of the world, and you are enough. So currently the young generation, which includes you have to deal with a world that is hotter and without enough food security and enough fresh water. So that's a reality. And if you can see this slide, the zero level is 1950, and all before that's like thousands and thousands of years, or hundreds of thousands of years, the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere was below this white dotted line. Okay, but now after 1950, the current level has it's increased up to here, which is beyond 420 parts per million, which is really a lot. And as you know, with this increased carbon dioxide, the sea level is rising and the climate has become hotter. So As you know, like in forest, they absorb carbon dioxide, and Bangladesh doesn't have enough forest, so we should be take care of that. But anyway, the Amazon forest is also under decline, and as you can see in this graph, this is the total, like it absorbs and then it releases carbon dioxide. So this is uh, it's absorbing very little. The Amazon forest is absorbing very little now, so that's a danger signal, because forests are being cut down, and for cropland and other purposes. But we need enough forest, to have a healthy planet. So you should keep that in mind. And then again, we should keep in mind what we eat. So this graph, it shows you, the type of foods we eat and how much carbon dioxide in producing those foods is released, right? So the lamb is the highest, beef is the highest. So this is equivalent miles driven, like carbon dioxide emissions. But if you have vegetables, it's lower. Rice is here. So the red is like meat production. Animal meat is like yellow. Animal product like milk or eggs, that's like yellow, yellow shades. And the green one is plants. So these have a lower carbon dioxide load. So when you eat, you should make a choice. I mean, eat less meat and have more of vegetables, because that's affecting the carbon dioxide in our climate. Okay. And this slide, it shows you that agriculture has actually taken up a lot of our lands. So pasture land and crop land, that's about 38.6% of the the dry land in the whole world. And then 46 is like forest, high mountains, so you cannot use that for growing crops. And the other is like land is being destroyed to erosion, rural housing and businesses, urban areas, planted forest, logging, and this. So we don't really have more land to go to, because we've already taken more for pasture land and cropland. So we have to increase or make our systems of growing crops more efficient. Uh, the other problem that I talked about is water stress. Luckily, Bangladesh, it has it's under the low stress, so we are lucky. But there's a water scarcity all over the world, particularly in Africa, and a lot of Europe, and of course Saudi Arabia, some part of Africa, uh, also South America, and in Mexico. So we have to, and Australia is very dry. So dryness also means fires, and this year there were a lot of fires. So increased temperature and water stress, they go hand in hand. So why does food security matter? Of course, it's an obvious question, but giving you some details, like 155 million people across 55 countries, they experienced food insecurity in 2020. And so this is a European Union information. And like out of these 155 million, it was 97.9 million in Africa, 45 million in Middle East and Asia, 11.8 million in Central America and in Haiti, and in 0.6 million in Europe. So, and in 2019, 2 billion people, they didn't have access to safe nutrition and sufficient food. And 750 million people are exposed to severe food security in 2019. So, and the drivers are political and social factors, conflict, and then you have economic factors, economic shocks, including COVID-19, and then of course you have climate change and weather extremes. So these are all making us produce enough food challenging. And then of course, the plastic problem. We are polluting whatever water resources we have, water and soil, we are polluting it with plastics. And then particularly in the oceans, the fishes and birds, they're eating plastic. And this is a picture of, it's an artistic picture where it's an art called a dead whale art, uh, and this was in front of a a water system, and this 50-foot long whale replica was created from plastic waste and was positioned in the beach near the shoreline in Manila Bay. So this is actually what's happening. This is art, but this is actually happened. Fishes are dying and birds are dying because of the plastic waste or the plastic microplastics that are present in the ocean. So we have to deal with that as well. And for some data regarding Dhaka, so Dhaka is producing 646 tons of plastic per day. Okay, so and of course, World Bank is it does try to address it or inspire people in Bangladesh to do it. So this was a plastic circulatory innovation challenge in which young scientists came up with a lot of good ideas. And then plastic, we can actually reuse plastic. So this is a example of somewhere in India where they're using plastic to make roads. So uh, the company is called KK Plastic Waste Management, and it has innovative, scientific, and environment friendly, feasible, and patented technological solution for handling the plastic waste present in garbage by reusing it for asphalting of roads. Huh? So they're actually using the plastic to build roads. So that's a very good initiative which Bangladesh can also do to make roads. So switching gears a little, I want to like tell you about inspiring stories where like young children like you, or actually women like you, have dealt with these problems. So uh, this is available in Amazon, and we know that lack of clean and accessible drinking water is a problem in many rural communities in Bangladesh. Young girls have to walk daily to fill pots of water to be used for drinking, bathing, and cooking. And shortage of clean drinking water causes many problems like diarrhea and typhoid from contaminated water. So this story is a story from a girl in Africa who made an initiative to conserve water like rainwater. So that's the story. And for ideas how to do it, how can you clean contaminated water, you can try different filters. And she also initiated programs like that for cleaning up the water resources. Okay, so then this girl, she actually has planted a whole green belt which is making a big difference. So this is Wangari. Her living area was getting deforested, and she actually started the Green Belt movement in Kenya in 1977, which focused on tree planting, the environment, and women empowerment. So Wangari got local women to plant trees, and her work had a huge impact. Since the creation of the Green Belt movement, millions of trees have been planted in Kenya and other African countries. The trees prevent soil erosion, filter water and air, and provide firewood and timber. So this is a very good, inspiring story. And then about plastics, a girl called Isatu Sise, she lived in Gambia, and she solved the problem of plastic waste in her country by finding new use for it. She started the Women Initiative Gambia. Each week, members of this organization made different kinds of bags and jewelry using reclaimed plastic waste. And then you have there are a lot of websites. I would encourage young girls to start up like coding activities, and there are a lot of internet sites. Some of them are here on the this slide. So just learning coding for fun, because coding will become the third language. It is already the third language, but it's going to become more so in the future. So I don't know how to code, and I feel a great loss for it. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll learn after my retirement. Okay, so these are some of the sites where you can go and where you can learn coding, and coding is actually quite fun. Okay, then, so an inspiring story about a woman in computing science. She's Grace Hopper. She's called the queen of computer code. And when Grace Hopper was a child, she read many books. She was born in 1906, and she loved taking things apart and putting them back together. And science and maths were her favorite subjects. So she wrote computer code for the first computer ever built. And the computer bug term, it also comes from Grace. And then she was a mathematician. She got a PhD at Yale University, which is, one of the topmost universities in the world. And she was a computer science, a pioneer in programming, and a US Navy admiral. So, her story is very, very inspiring. And if you're not already coding, you can go to free coding sites and activities, and the Hour of Code, that's another site, and Scratch. Both offer free coding activities. So I'd encourage you to, do that. And then, of course, there's so much to learn from biological organisms, activities of living organisms are simply fascinating. So I deal with plants. Plants are no less fascinating, but there's a whole field called biomimicry, which you examine, how organisms function in nature and find useful ideas to use to create models and systems or processes that imitate life and which can solve human problems. So, for example, among physical adaptations that organisms do, they can camouflage themselves, and the military gear that people wear, it's comes from that idea of camouflage that animals have. And then they have mimicry, then the type of claws that they have, how they climb trees, the types of mouths, beaks, kinds of body covering. So that these are physical adaptations that they have. And then out of behavioral adaptations, they can do migration, hibernation. They can be nocturnal, as in waking up only during the night. They have defensive behaviors, mating or courtship, and how they find food, how they make shelter, how they communicate, how to get along in a group. So how bees get work in a group. So uh, some examples of how animals were, how animals behave. They were used to produce technology which is very useful for humans. So, like sonar technology was developed from studying how whales and bats use echolocation for navigation. And then, paper was invented from studying how wasps made their nests. Okay. And biomimicry, biomimicry is actually how George D. Mestral became inspired to create Velcro. He was hunting birds with his Irish pointer and traveled through some burdock thistles. So, Velcro, in your shoes. So, this was invented by George D. Mistral, and he actually was inspired from that idea by watching hunting birds. Okay, so then there are others like zoologists, like who are working with fish or organisms. So there's a famous scientist called Eugene Clark, and she's ocean's most fearless scientist. So she actually swam with sharks until she was 92. So she became a zoologist when she was a little girl. She went to New York and watched the sharks in the aquarium, while her mother worked. So, and she was the first people to ever scuba dive. So, some activities that you can do is like, read about sharks. And I talked about how oceans are, polluted. So you can find out how sea pollution is affecting our fish population. And then you can design your own aquariums or study buoyancy, how things float. So that's something interesting to do. There's an example of Patricia Bath, who invented, how when you go to the doctor, for eye doctor, the tests that they have, these were invented by a scientist called Patricia Bath. She was an African American, and she was the first African American female to become an ophthalmologist. She got a patent for a device that can restore eyesight by treating cataracts. No? So you can also learn more about the eye. The eye is actually a fascinating organism, fascinating organ. Okay. very fascinating organ. So learn more about eye by studying glaucoma or cataracts. You can make a model of the eye and study the eyes of different animals. So that's also very, like insects have compound eyes and we have simple eyes. But so all these books are actually available at Amazon. And then another story, Temple Grandin, she was autistic. Uh, other children used to tease her, but she invented machines, uh, which is called the squeeze machine, to calm people and animals. She also invented a cattle chute that is used in more than half of the farms in the United States. So you can also, uh, learn about different types of uh, cattle, learn more about autism, or invents something. And our uh, cattle in our country, some of them have very interesting genotypes which are unique to Bangladesh. So there's a lot to learn about from animals as well. And then the girl with the mind for math, she's Ray Montag. And she designed the submarine. She toured the submarine when she was very little with her grandfather. And then when she learned that engineers had built it, she wanted to become one. But she was black and engineering was not taught to black students. So she got her degree in business. And then she was hired by the Navy as a typist in the department where submarines were built. So Ray watched and learned. And once, when everyone got the flu, she did all of the work by memory. And then she went on to get a degree in engineering and design ships. So again, you can study buoyancy, design a submarine, and how a submarine operates and sinks underwater, but doesn't touch the bottom. So these are things that you can learn about. And then there's a story of the astronaut. She was Mexican, and she became the first Hispanic woman astronaut. She also has several inventions. So like she studied engineering. She also liked to play the flute. Okay, so how can you become? I mean, I know how can you become a STEM person and then inspire girls around you to become STEM. You can start a club and do interesting projects. You can, of course, utilize mentors. You can read books, have a book club, and then you can support a cause. So there are so many causes that you can support even within Dhaka city, which are based on science. So you know and encouraging STEM activities in middle and high school girls. So for you who are university students, you can make projects to and invite young girls from middle and high schools um, you know uh, to start all these activities or interact and encourage young girls to in STEM, to makes them confident, particularly in math. And adolescents, because adolescence years are very difficult. The world seems a difficult place to deal with. So uh, as a university, the students working in IUB, you can like have sessions with uh, kids from or girls from younger schools. Okay, so changing gears again, my journey as a scientist. So I am from the University of Dhaka, Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, and my lab is called Plant Biotechnology Laboratory. So I work with, like I've divided my major work into three portions. So one is like how you do breeding in plants. You might have a high yielding crop, but you want to introduce drought, say, for example, drought resistance, right? So then you would cross these two plants, and then you would select progeny across different generations to select for plants which have both the drought tolerant trait as well as the high yielding trait. So it's very difficult to select plants like that. You have to do complex screening. So you can actually make a shortcut by using DNA markers. So it would be like, when you're uh, going on a road journey, if you have certain like markers telling you where you are. So like signposts. So that's what a fluorescent, a DNA marker does. And if you make it fluorescent, you can easily detect it, a specific area of your map, where your drought tolerance is located. You can detect that your plant has those drought tolerant and your high yielding loci. So that's what we have done. And then I've created a lot of transgenic salt and drought and heat tolerant high yielding rice. And then recently, more recently, we have been exploring some bacteria and fungus actually live within the plant and also in soil, which actually help plants grow. So we are investigating those as well. So just to give a brief overview. So as I was saying, that you have a high yielding, say rice, because I work with rice, a high yielding variety, and then but you have a tolerance. Say it's, as I said, say drought to drought, tolerant to drought. Okay, so you cross, and then what we did is we selected plants which had both the high yield and the tolerant through fluorescent based markers. Okay, so these we selected like these lines which had 3 different loci, which would give it, actually this work was with salt tolerance. Okay, so after we developed these progeny using these markers, we ended up with some progeny. So this is the sensitive variety, this is the tolerant parent, and these are some of the lines that we developed, and you can see these are quite strong, right? So this is under control conditions, and under stress the sensitive variety is already dead, and the parent, it's somewhat damaged, but then our lines are also quite good. And ultimately we developed commercial salt tolerant versions of certain commercial rice, such as BR63, BR67, and BR74. So these BR63, 67, and 74, these are high yielding commercial lines released by Berry, and we made salt tolerant versions of these. And of course, Bangladesh Rice Research Institute was our collaborator in this work. And then about the transgenic salt and drought and heat tolerant high rice. So these are already developed lines, and we are sharing them with the National Institute of Biotechnology, to further develop and maybe release them someday. So let me explain what happens. If you have a sensitive high yielding variety, it will look like this, but if you under control conditions, but if you give it stress, that it's not going to set any grains. This is what happens, right? So we developed these heat tolerant lines, and we subjected them to 42 degrees C, and the wild type BR55, it died, but the transgenes in which we put the G protein, beta G protein, we put inside these rice, and you can see these are tolerant. And then this is another gene, helicase gene, and you can see that the ones which are tolerant, it's setting more grains. Okay, and then this is with another gene again, this is the wild type, and under stress they're still setting more grains. This is one with another gene which can sequester the toxic sodium into the vacuoles. So these are some tolerant lines. And then we have other genes where we are getting like kali jira, we produce high yield, like we increase the grain yield in kali jira, again a transgenic line. And then here these are salt tolerant lines in which we down regulated a transporter, which might lead to leakage of sodium. So these are some of the transgenic lines that we are developing, and we the last line, was using the CRISPR technology. Okay, and then as I was saying that we are using, we found certain microbes. In this slide shows certain fungus which are actually living inside a halophytic plant, which we got from the coastal area, and we developed this fungus. And actually this fungus, these are some of the properties of this fungus. So this fungus survives well under salt stress, and it's also it's producing siderophores, which helps the plant take up minerals. And then it solubilizes zinc, again it helps the plant take up zinc. And then this fungus also does nitrogen fixation and phosphate solubilization. So phosphate, as you know, it's not very soluble. So plants always have a deficiency, and we use phosphate fertilizer. But this fungus actually helps the plant take up phosphate. And when we applied, so under control conditions, when we applied the fungus, this is what the plant looks like. It's a normal plant. under normal conditions. And after we apply salt, so this is non-stress, this is stress. This is what the plant is damaged, and this is what the plant looks like, which on which fungus was applied. So we haven't published this work yet. This is very exciting for us. So we are developing it further. And in my journey, I have so many brilliant young women scientists who have helped me. This is Dr. Sabrina Elias, Assistant Professor IUB, who who was present in my journey of success throughout my years. And then this is another Sumaya Jannat Toputi. She's a lecturer in Jagannath University. And then, lots of important persons. All of these girls are now, employed in scientific institutes and universities, and they're all doing very well. And then just I want to show you. So these are my lab alumni over years. And I had 43 girls with respect to 37 boys in my lab, and which is a ratio of 1.2 to 1, which I'm very excited about. And again, my team representing plant at the biotechnology fair for science and technology ministry. And then, my team has won awards at international conferences for presenting my work. So these are all from my lab. And just to give you a list of students, girl students who have got their PhDs, or at least some of them have got their PhDs, but some of them are got their they did their masters from my lab, and they are all in important organizations now, either scientists, senior scientists, or lecturer and lecturer, and or PhD researchers. And these are all women. Okay. So, and then talking about women PhDs in the Faculty of Biological Sciences, we have, 43 women out of 81. So that is quite a good percentage. And then, as I say, you can do it. All women in STEM, you can do it. All you have to do is put your mind to it and focus. And I'm thankful that I'm a woman. And thanks to Salman Pramon and IUB for this event and inviting me. And thank you for patiently listening to me. Thank you very much. So I'll stop sharing, okay?
Sure. Thank you so much for such an insightful speech and for sharing your valuable words and experience with us, especially for raising awareness about climate change, encouraging young women to participate in various STEM activities, including coding, which I think is very important in this day and age, and for supporting such causes, and that too in such simple terms so that everyone can understand. We might have some questions from the audience if you would like to answer them. So the first question, if you can see on the screen, is how might we address changing perspectives or behaviors of women who aspire to be in STEM while simultaneously designing solutions that especially address girls?
Okay, so I would say that I know that girls might have specific problems, right? But in general, I don't think that we should differentiate girls from boys. Every individual has their own problems. Every individual, you might come from different backgrounds, you might have, different interests, or, different things that inspire you. So I don't think, putting women in a box and saying that, okay, you're a woman and, you have these problems. And so, these, I mean, we shouldn't put barriers. Of course, at the same time, we should, help women, pursue their goals, encourage them. I came from a family, my father, he's a professor. So I came from a family where so I have two brothers, but my parents never differentiated me from my, two brothers. So as a matter of fact, some of my brothers think that, I'm too, what shall I say? too competitive, or they don't say I'm boyish or a tomboy, but they say that I'm very competitive. But I mean, I raised a family. I have two girls of my own, and I have in-laws. They all respect me. So I think for women, you should first define what they want and then just go for it. And then, ask for family support if you don't have it. So giving family support is important, not only from the household, but from the community as well. The community, the government, they should support women when they want to, forge ahead. So that's my answer.
That's a great answer. I think the next one is, how might we encourage more industries to consider the long-term implications of gender messaging?
Um, okay, so um, as the examples that I gave, all the examples were women working in areas traditionally thought of as, women can't do it, but men can, right? There were examples of the Black women who, who became a typist first, and then she showed the men that, she's just as good, and then went on from that. So, what I think is industries should not consider the gender, consider the qualifications or the, the, what shall I say, the talents that a person has, and then go on from there. Because, like even in the British Parliament, there were no women toilets, right? So that was an afterthought. So it's there now, but like 50 years ago, there were no women toilets, right? So it's just that you consider the talents of a person while hiring them, and then, and as far as childcare and stuff goes, I think men and women, they should take equal responsibility in raising a child. So just like women have maternity leave, I think men should have too. So the roles should not be defined that this is only what a woman can do and this is what a man can do, right? Because women are everywhere. Recently there was a TWAS conference, and in which one of the the anchors, or not anchors, one of the presiding session presiding scientist was a woman who's gone to Antarctica. She's been on missions to Antarctica. So I mean, women can do anything. So that's my answer.
Absolutely, I agree that equality is the first step to more encouraging more female participation.
Yeah.
Oh, then there's Soha Rashid. She says, "Why are women outnumbered by men in STEM fields?"
So as I said, you have to think that you can do it. You have to build confidence. So of course confidence comes from like family, but if say there's something lacking in the family, you have to show your family that you can do what you. So first of all, you have to be interested in something you do, and then go on from there. So both of my daughters are engineers. Okay, so when they were young, my husband was he's passed away, but he was also an engineer. So he used to give them cranes to play instead of dolls. So, and they were never interested in dolls and stuff. So like like balls, cranes and other stuff, Lego building stuff and other things. So I just think that as long as you don't differentiate, don't assume that girls will only play with dolls. No, so.
And Shamima Ma'am says, "Great achievement."
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here today. We are very grateful to have you with us, and for the time you shared with us, and for encouraging our audience. I hope we can have you with us again.
Thank you so much, Ashrafi. Thank you.
Thank you.